Cool guys, and welcome to another episode of Down the Barrel of a Pistol with me, Pistol Pete, and my young associate here, Fisher. Lovely. Today we will be drinking, for myself, a Recorderlig cider, a premium watermelon and strawberry. Beautiful. I chose this because the drink that Fisher chose is too manly for me. What are you drinking today?
I've got the Max Sassy Red, an amber ale, which is quite delicious, and it's a real man's drink.
Absolutely. It was very nice to ask 3 different people at New World to find out what it was, and it was enjoyable to say the drink Sassy Red. That was enjoyable. So today we're here. We're obviously going to be talking to Fisher. Who are you, Fisher?
Who am I? My name is Fisher Gangemi. I grew up in Montana, which is northwest in the U.S., and I started meeting through Pete through work. We work at a direct sales company here. He's actually my boss, which is quite interesting. But
He's a turn up.
Yeah, he's interested in some of my background, which I grew up spending a lot of time in the wilderness, did a lot of ski racing, but primarily he's interested in my time in the woods, doing a bit of an interesting job and having an interesting lifestyle back there. And that's why I'm here, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely why you're here. We talk a lot when we're travelling back to and from work. We talk about what you do, and your lifestyle is completely different to mine. I grew up in Droitwich, or anyone that knows it from the street level, it's called Detroitwich. It's very cool. That's why they drink Recorderligs for men. But I come from that background, very small town. It's got a little bit of farm work around, but the life that you describe is completely different. Every time that we talk about it, you tell new stories, which I think sometimes are half of them made up, but I believe when you actually discuss them again, they're always real. So yeah, exactly, that's why you're here. I want to find out a little bit more about why you got into it. How did you get into kind of that lifestyle? How did you grow up? What was it like growing up, and how did you get into it?
Absolutely. Well, Pete, basically I was really lucky to be raised by extremely outdoorsy and active parents in a place where that was really possible. So Montana has all this amazing recreational areas. Beautiful, easy to access, and my parents brought me and took me full advantage of all those places. So I was able to see all of that firsthand at a very young age. So I remember in particular this one time my parents took me in the backcountry. This was a trip with some family, and we went deep into an area called the Bob Marshall Wilderness, which is a massive public lands area in the Montana area. So it's 1.5 million acres of untouched wilderness land. So you can't run a chainsaw, no motors, no wheels, no human impact there, basically. In the Forest Service, the federal government maintains it. And so we went on a 10-day floating trip down the South Fork of Flathead on that river. So horses carried our boats in, and we floated down the river. Really cool trip. I was only 8, and a couple of my cousins were on around that same age. And I remember about halfway down the river section of that trip, we came to a place called Big Prairie Ranger Station, which is a ranger station that is maintained by the U.S. Forest Service. And we pulled up off our boats and we walked out there, and the station guard who guards from fires and helps public contact for people there made us a lemonade and gave us a cookie and told us about the ranger station, showed us around, and kind of told us about the lifestyle of the people that maintain that wilderness there and live back there. I remember telling my parents as I was walking back to the boats at just 8 years old, I'm going to live here someday. I will live here. This is going to be my lifestyle. And they thought it was awesome. Like, that's hilarious. That's great.
Yeah,
you know that he loves this thing that we love.
Want to be an astronaut or something like that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Want to be a cowboy.
Yeah, sure. Whatever it was. But I wanted to live at Big Prairie.
Yeah.
And, I forgot about it. Something that, I was 8. But when I was 17, my first job was working for an organization called the Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation. I actually got my second job. I quit a job. Just because it was horrible, and my parents told me I needed another job. So the next day,
what was that job? Can I ask that job?
Yeah, it was horrible. I was working at a now closed Southern barbecue restaurant. Yeah,
sounds great.
It was pretty rough. Yeah, minimum wage, $7.50 an hour, I believe. It was pretty rough. No tips. But so I quit after 10 shifts or so, and found myself at loss of what to do, because I thought every job was like this. My whole life was going to be horrible the rest of now. I remember going on the website of the Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation, which is a local charity, as well as they help maintain that same wilderness area. Went on their website, and they had a couple of vacancies, so I called them up, and they were talking about doing an internship. So I put on like fancy clothes, thinking this was like going to be an upscale interview, and it was, guys wearing Carhartts and hoodies in there. But I ended up getting the internship, and I started going into the woods on 8 to 10 day trips, helping the lead volunteers into the backcountry. And that was my first time really without my parents going on these kind of adventures, and independently of them falling in love with this kind of recreation, and really developing a passion for wilderness conservation, spending a lot of time in the wilderness and gaining the skills myself, because I had a lot of the skills being raised around that. But learning it yourself is a lot different, and being taught it from mentors that aren't blood relatives is very different. And so
did you want to do the job when you applied? When you applied for it, were you like, I want this, or was it kind of like, oh, I've got to do this, and then you fell in love with it?
It was something like I always loved being in the woods, but I think to a certain degree I like had this idea like, oh, I was going to be like the same shit as my parents, dragging me on these trips in the woods, which I loved. I loved those trips. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, like, it's so different when you independently choose to do that, and I loved it. I was at 17. I was leading at-risk juvenile delinquent youths in these 10-day backcountry trips, helping to maintain the wilderness that I loved, and I was sharing that with them. And so it was really cool for me, and it developed this love for that wilderness area. And I realized that I could give back to something that already had given me so much. I had learned so much from this area. And so that was really amazing for me. And I fell in love with that kind of lifestyle. And so when I was 18, that's a seasonal job. So it's in the wintertime, they're not able to run that wilderness area as much, because no access. It's pretty snowy back there. And so the Forest Service doesn't have as much, they're not back there in the winter. But in the next winter, after a year of school, I finished my high school, and the day after I finished high school, I showed up at Spotted Bear Ranger Station, which is the ranger station that's in charge of the whole Bob Marshall, the main part of the Bob Marshall Wilderness Complex. And they shipped me off to Big Prairie, which is where I was going to be stationed. And I remember walking up and being like, well, shit, when I was 8, I told my parents I was going to live here, and I haven't been back since, but I'm glad I'm here, you know. Cool. I had so much fun that summer. I was 18, you know, I was an idiot. I made a lot of mistakes, and but the people around me respected how much I was able to put in a ton of work. I had a lot of fun. I just loved being in the backcountry. We worked 10 days on, and then had 4 days off. And the 4 days off were at that Big Prairie Ranger Station, which is 30 miles from the nearest road. So just a little bit from there is a place called Brushy Park, which is actually the second farthest place from any road in the whole lower 48 of the U.S. The first being in Yellowstone. I think that Brushy Park is 33 miles in any direction from the nearest road, which is massive if you think about it, because it takes so long to get up and over the mountains. It's not easy terrain back there, and so you feel pretty isolated. The only way to call home was on a satellite phone that we didn't really have access to, or to write a letter, which went out on a horse for 3 days and then went to my parents, you know, to the snail mail. So it was a very different
bit like
experience.
living in New Zealand.
Yeah, nearly. I can't do FaceTime back there. It's a little different. And so it was a different experience to me, but I sank my teeth into it. I loved it. And as I think I realized that when I was younger, I took this kind of experience for granted. And then I met all these people back there that didn't have that same background as I did. They didn't grow up around that quite as much as I did, and they didn't take it for granted. And I realized how special that place was, how unique that kind of lifestyle is. You're interested in it, and these people were the same. And for me to see that from their perspective was like, oh, holy shit, I'm lucky. This is really cool, you know? And so I really enjoyed being around that and seeing that different lifestyle. I think that's what kept me coming back to it. Even the next 6 years, and up till pretty much now, this is my first summer not doing it. And I will be this next summer, I'm thinking.
Absolutely. It was just me that taught you.
It's me. Exactly.
Absolutely. No, that's cool.
For sure.
Awesome. And obviously you work around that Big Prairie. What was your average? What's like an average day for you?
Well, Pete, I'd say actually an average day in the Bob is the Bob Marshall Wilderness. Sorry, the Bob is what we call it.
Average day in the Bob. That's nice.
The average day in the Bob is actually very different. So one of the beauties of why I loved it is it's never the same. You're not doing anything monotonous at all back there. Not only do the seasons change dramatically, the water levels, the weather, the people that use the wilderness change for the seasons, and the different people that are working back there. So in the middle of the summer, there's a bunch of crews with volunteers and higher numbers of employees working back there. in the spring and fall, it's a lot quieter. It's just a few of the people that have been doing it for a while that come back, and so they each have their own beauties, but you're never doing the same thing. But I guess my favorite time of year for me was always the fall.
Yeah.
Because it would be the peak of the work would be in the summer. Some really hardcore work in there, and then the fall you'd do some firefighting. There'd be some big fires, and you'd get a fat paycheck for that. But you'd also, really blow your brains out just working really hard.
Yeah.
And then that first snow comes, and it gets real cold, and the work slows down a lot, and you end up doing a lot more work with hunters, because there's a lot of hunters that come into that time of year.
Okay. What are they hunting? What's the type of?
Primarily elk hunting is the main animal that they get out there, just because it's so hard to access that area that they don't hunt something that you can be easily taken out of the town areas. Because it's just so far in there. Anyone that comes in is on horseback, really, or on foot. And it's pretty hard to carry an elk out on foot. They're large animals. So there's deer, there's elk, there's bear, there's moose. But the primary hunts would be for mule deer, elk, black bear, goats, mountain goats. Are hunted back there sometimes. And this is with rifle and bow. But primarily is the major rifle season. There's some outfitter guides that come out there. My job in the fall, so my average day, sorry to get off track there. So my average day for that would, I get up very early. So I usually would get up around 4:45 in the morning, get a coffee going right away. My boss, who I used to live back there with, he's got a dog, a border collie, who is a great wrangling dog. So I always give Simon a little whistle. He's the dog, and he goes and helps me find my horse. Yeah, exactly.
Give Simon a whistle.
So I give Simon a good whistle. He always runs over from the boss's house and helps me catch a couple horses. And then I use them to generally catch the herd of horses. So we have 2 horses that live in a big prairie, at the big prairie. Yeah, exactly. And it's a big fenced-in area. It used to be an old airstrip before airplanes were banned from the wilderness because of the regulations back there to keep it more or less human-touched, I guess.
Okay.
And so we've got a couple of horses that stay in that fence, and they graze openly in there. It's a very large fenced-in area. But then I'll grab the dog, we'll wrangle those guys in. They're pretty well-trained horses. They come right in, saddle them up, take them out to find the other horses. We have around 20 to 30 horses and mules that are free grazing out in the countryside around there. It's all public land. And so we just jump on and try and find them. We have big bells in their necks. You can hear them in the distance, but some sweet spots. They usually like to hang out in the good grass and such. So I'm just
behind the bike shelter.
Yeah, exactly. Grab those darn mules. They can be tricky, but doesn't take too long usually. Sometimes it can be a few hours to wrangle, but usually it's only about 20 to 30 minutes. You're out there just galloping along on your horse, looking for the other horses. Oftentimes you're hearing wolves in the morning. You're seeing them. You're seeing a bear in the morning. You're seeing deer and elk out there. Every morning you're out there. And it's cold and it's beautiful and the sun's just coming up sometimes. In the summer that time of year, but it'll be dark using a headlamp in the winter or the fall when I'm doing that. And so it's really my favorite time of the day.
And how dangerous are the wolves? You said wolves just hanging around you? Do they just...
Yeah, wolves are completely not dangerous to humans. That's a total myth.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. I think there's been 2 recorded. Yeah, exactly. The cold.
Screwed up. I can't remember what the film's called, but you screwed up.
It was a rough one. I hated that film. So wolves are completely harmless to humans, essentially, unless you're a baby child alone in the woods. There's been, I think, 2 wolf-human and native interactions in recorded history. So super safe with wolves, especially when you're on horse. You're golden.
With a wolf.
Yeah. So you see them and it's just amazing. I mean, they're huge, and they're just amazing. They're in their perfect ecosystem back there. Really amazing to see that, and that's one of the things that really makes me passionate about conserving that kind of wilderness area. Is seeing those animals in their happy place, which is really cool.
That's cool.
So once we get all of our horses and we take them right into that corral that we were talking about there.
Corral.
It's a big thing to have all those horses in there. We grab a big old feed, grab some breakfast for us. Usually it just involves some bacon, eggs, everything comes in back on horseback to get there. So the quality of it gets a little bit old sometimes, but it's enough to get you going, which is good. And then we put those horses and mules to work. So those animals are extremely vital to the whole operation back there. Like I was saying, everything that comes in is on horseback. So it used to be a place that was supplied by a plane, but now it's 100% on horse. There's a guy whose only job is to basically pack up and down the river. He does it once every 7 days. He takes 9 mules up and down that river, which is just amazing. He's been doing it for a long time. And I think everyone that I've worked with back there would agree that without those horses and mules, that it wouldn't be operational.
It wouldn't work,
It's really amazing what they can do back there. We use them for everything from construction projects. They haul up our lumber, our tools. They can drag anything. They can carry anything. They're amazing and amazing creatures. I just love it. And I think the really cool thing that I've become very passionate about is that I was raised in the backcountry. I was telling you, my parents were very amazing about the skills they taught me, but they didn't do anything with the horses. My dad's actually scared of horses, believe it or not.
Chicken.
Yeah, exactly.
The worst
you
cowboy
should see him near a horse. Yeah,
you can't even meet a cowboy without being the horse. It's like the first tick, isn't it?
I don't think he calls himself a cowboy.
No, not classing.
Not at all. No.
Where's that?
No. Just the boots, yeah. No. But yeah, so I when I first started doing this kind of work, it was very foreign to me and frightening, as it should be. Because they're dangerous animals. But at 18, when I first started my job at the Forest Service, I remember a couple days in, my first real working day, they tossed me on one of those big horses, and they told me to go to Big Prairie, which I had been to when I was 8. And I hadn't been on that trail before, and 18 miles later, I didn't know what I was doing, and I fell off the horse and I got dragged. Saddle completely flipped under, but I was all right. Got back on. I learned how to resaddle a horse, figured that out. Ended up getting to Big Prairie. And
just on your own, or was that?
I was with 2 other guys, I think. But it was pretty solo for the most part that day.
Let you do it yourself.
Yeah, it was good. It's what I needed, honestly. It was kind of something to humble me a little bit, and it was something that really drew me in because even after working back there for 6 years, I've worked with horses a lot back there, but I am 100% a novice. I know nothing about them. It is amazing. I can figure it out. I can handle myself. But some of those guys back there have been working back there with horses for 60, 70 years, and they would probably even say something similar. It's amazing how much knowledge there is in horsemanship. The skills that you can get to with a horse, they're so subtle. And the amazing thing about the guys that know so much about it is they're always learning, and they're talking to each other about the things that they can learn. They're always looking at someone doing different with the way they're holding their ropes or anything as subtle as how their shoe fits in their stirrup. It's amazing what they're doing out there.
And that can make a difference.
Exactly. And that's something that's made me really passionate about it because I know I can never learn everything there is to get out of that. But that being said, what we use those horses for when we're out there every day, all sorts of different purposes. But for the main part, in that fall, my favorite time of year, my job is to be a Forest Service presence for the hunters back there in the wilderness. I'm not by any means a law enforcement officer. My boss is the lowest level of law enforcement officer that can be, really. So he regulates a few things around ticketing.
Hopefully he doesn't watch us.
Yeah, exactly. No, he's a good guy. But absolutely, my job is to carry around a radio and a camera and basically make sure everyone's doing everything right.
And it's because you say that big area that's unregulated, isn't it? Is it you say anyone can go into that?
Anyone can go in. Absolutely. So that's one of the beauties of it, is it's completely accessed by anyone. 100% public land. Don't have to have a permit. There are a few regulations on the group size you can have, and that's one of the things that I'm out there to maintain because the laws back there are not to hold anyone back. They're only to make sure that wilderness stays as pure as it is. And that's something that I'm really passionate about, to basically be out there creating that and maintaining that, because I want that wilderness area, the Bob Marsh Wilderness, to stay what it is hundreds of years from now. And the more impact that comes back there for more people, and the less of that. So my job is to make sure that people stay by those regulations. And so I would go out there and look for the people hiking, backpacking, hunting, and just be a presence, be a nice guy out there and make sure that they know what the rules are and they follow them.
And have you had anyone that hasn't?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's a couple characters back there, and that's kind of the fun of it, that it does get a little bit interesting. I mean, some people do go in there thinking it is somewhat of the Wild West. I mean,
Yeah.
Everyone's carrying a gun. Absolutely everyone except for me, because I'm working back there. I'm not allowed to, except
They definitely are the equivalent of the security guard.
Yeah.
Like
I carry
like a morgue.
a bear spray. Yeah, I seriously.
Fisher Blart.
Yeah.
Forest card.
I hope not. I don't have the beer gut yet. We'll see. But yeah, that's what I do back there. Basically make sure that they keep their stuff together, because it does get a little wild. And standard, we do run into a lot of those kind of characters back there. So just really interesting folks. There's some definitely Bob Marshall Wilderness legends that we'll never stop talking about.
Yeah.
But that's kind of one thing that I love about the fall time of the year, because those are when those characters come out of the woodworks, and you run into some interesting stories back there. And that's one thing that I love about that time of year. But in the fall, my average day to get back to track there, Pete. Sorry about it.
Right,
no, it's fun. Yeah. So when I'm out in the woods, I often have some kind of objective, whether it's the talking to the people doing that public contact, but oftentimes it's maintaining the wilderness, as we were talking about before. So I've always got my tools with me, my saws, my axes, always ready to be working on that, and I'll be maintaining something with that.
Yeah.
So oftentimes in the fall, I'll be also carrying gear to resupply the cabins with different supplies, because we do trips in the winter even to maintain snow levels, to make sure that the snow levels are good for the dam below, and just to basically record all that information.
Yeah.
And so we need to make sure the cabins are stocked for people to use that in the winter. And so I'll be supplying that kind of thing, but I'll be staying at those Forest Service cabins, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
These are all historically built cabins with hand tools that were built with the trees around them. Some of them in the 1910s, you know.
That's cool.
These amazing cabins, and they're stone fireplaces, and just amazing. And
Water?
Streams right
Okay,
nearby.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple that are plumbed, but it's all by gravity pumps, which is really cool.
Fun man.
Yeah, it's really cool. Just come right down the mountainside. It's amazing. You feel pretty idyllic living back there, or you'll just be staying near your tent, or oftentimes I just sleep on a saddle pad or two for my horse, and sleep on the ground most nights, actually, in the summer especially. And yeah, you're back there for sometimes 10 days alone, or with a crew. In the summer times we'll have crews. Oftentimes we'll be working with a couple other guys. It's really good.
Yeah.
So at the peak of it, there's usually about 15 of us working at a big prairie station. We're all going in different directions. In the spring and the fall, it's a lot less. But in the fall, it's usually just 3 or 4 of us back there. Sometimes some volunteers and such, which is really great.
You said the fall was your favourite time?
Yeah,
is that just
for
with
sure.
the numbers and the stories, or just the whole kind of...
Well, there's a few different things to it. On the weekends in the fall, I can go hunting. I love just being out on a horse alone sometimes. It's so much fun. Those are my favorite memories back there, are the days where I was just being me out in the woods with a horse, or just hiking. It's really amazing. It's my happy place, Pete.
Guess it's the place you don't have to do anything for anyone.
Exactly.
Like no one's there, you don't have to be happy, be sad.
To a certain degree. But at the same time, I consider myself my best human, if you will, when I'm in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And that's because so when I'm in town, I sometimes can be unmotivated. I have a hard time getting up early.
Yeah.
I have a hard time making sure I've got everything done in the day. When I'm in the backcountry, these aren't tasks that you can just, lay on your phone and like, oh, I'm just going to stay in bed another 20 minutes. It's like you wake up and you're like, well, I have to catch my horse, or I'm going to be late to go here, and I'll get there after dark, and I'll be freezing and I'm cold, and I could get hypothermia. So every task I do back there has a real world purpose for me and the wilderness area. And that's how I feel so motivated to achieve it. And every day I'm out there doing something different, but it always plays back to maintaining that wilderness and building up the caricature around that wilderness, which is really amazing. And that's what keeps me coming back to it, is that I know that I'm bringing something, not only to me, I'm getting a paycheck at the end of the day, but that's not what I'm thinking about. Oftentimes I'm working a 16-hour day and I'm getting paid for 8 of it. But I care about what I'm bringing to that wilderness, and I can look down the trail behind me, and whether it's seeing a completely cleared trail of trees, or just something that allows other people the ease of access to this place that I love. That's what I love about it. That's why I keep coming back.
reason, purpose, and the natural drive to do it.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And well, you were talking earlier as well. You were saying that you did the work with I'm probably using the wrong terms, but firefighting, bushfires, and stuff like that. Obviously, bushfires they talk about in Australia and New Zealand. But you said, how did you come across that? Obviously, you've done this through passion and stuff. How did you get across into that avenue?
Yeah. So we call it wildland firefighting in the U.S. and any Forest Service employee basically has to go through a training to be certified to be a wildland firefighter of different degrees, but there's the main course is just a 2-week course for any entry-level Forest Service employee. I took it when I was 18, and then every year you have a refresher on that. And there's no guarantee that you're going to be on a fire, especially because I was a Type 2 firefighter, which means my primary job is to do this other activities I was talking about, so maintaining that wilderness, allowing people to access it. A Type 1 firefighter only fights fire.
Oh, okay.
So my job is when there's a fire in that wilderness area, if it stops me from doing my job or stops people from accessing it, I'm on that fire.
Yeah.
And in the area where I worked in Montana, the last few years I ended up being on a few fires, which is a really cool experience.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it a lot, not only because I was doing something different, which I always love, and learning this different skill, but also because it's a lot of work. These fires are pretty interesting, and it changes up the wilderness dramatically. It's a very natural thing back there. Almost all of these fires are started by lightning strikes, and so they're a natural part of the ecosystem. It's actually a huge part of what keeps the waters healthy and clean, which all plays back into the whole cycle of that ecosystem there. So you need fires to a certain degree. And because of it, we actually let a lot of those fires burn to a certain degree.
Yeah.
So if they're a huge fire, we do have to put a map when they get close to a town.
Yeah.
But for the main part, a lot of those fires, you let them burn as long as they aren't affecting public resources, which is really cool. And that's something I really loved about it. So my job was to, oftentimes I wasn't, the big macho firefighter. I was often doing logistics, so I would be carrying supplies for firefighters. I was doing some maintenance I was protecting cabins for a while, so I would stay at a remote Forest Service cabin. These cabins I was talking about before that, some of them are built in the 1920s, 1910 even.
I would take that
crazy.
job if it was, do you want to go fight the fire or do you want to stay in the cabin? I'll keep an eye on the cabin. It's a job, it's an important job, and someone's got to do it.
Absolutely. Well, you'd think it's kind of like that. Yeah, occasionally sometimes you're saying, you're in one spot, and there's not always a ton of work to do, but there is one fall that I was there. This was a really large fire in Montana. This was the Bear Creek fire, actually. It was a big fire in 2015. It was, at the time, the largest fire in the state of Montana. I don't actually remember exactly how big it got, but it was a big one. And it was moving fast, eating up some terrain. And so they're worried about some Forest Service resources back there. And so I was called in to protect Black Bear Cabin, which is actually an old ranger station. It was a ranger station in the 30s and 40s, 1930s and 40s, not too old of a wilderness area. But basically, the Black Bear Cabin was being threatened by this fire oncoming. My job was to make sure that it didn't burn. Once those cabins burnt, because of the wilderness regulations that were put in the 1964 Wilderness Act in the U.S., you cannot rebuild anything. So you can maintain them, but you can't rebuild them. So it's very important to protect these kind of historic structures. Exactly. And so that was my job. And so I was back there for 2 stints of 14 days, I believe, with a few other people. And I remember in particular, I was working there with 2 people like myself that were the Type 2 firefighters. They didn't have a ton of fire experience. Both of them had more than I did, but not a ton. And one guy that had a heap of fire experience. So he was our incident commander. He was calling the shots, giving us the jobs in the day. And he was a primary firefighter. So that was interesting because my job as a Type 2 firefighter was to maintain the wilderness, and so all of us were active, out there, this is perfect, we're at this cabin for so long, there's so much work that we can do out of this area, and this guy was like, nope, you guys have to be ready for the fire at all time, and we're like, but the fire's miles away, we can do all this stuff, and we wanted to build a new corral and get all this stuff done, which was nice, but we ended up just sitting and waiting a lot. It was a lot of quiet time, but it did get pretty spicy, because the fire did end up getting pretty close. So we had what we called trigger points. And so the incident commander there, he called those out. So the trigger point at one point was about a mile away. Or it was a little further than that. So this is where the fire gets to that point, we freak out. not freak out, but we take measures to react to it. And so, so we were prepared for this fire to hit that point, and it hit that point, and I remember thinking, like, are we ready to go? And he's like, it's not as hot as it should be. We're gonna wait. And so we moved the trigger point back. We actually ended up moving it back twice. And there was some resupplies coming in on helicopter, but ended up getting to the point where the fire had completely surrounded us at that cabin, and we had hoses going. The cabin was completely wrapped in foil. Basically, it looks like a spaceship in the middle of the woods. The foil reflects the heat quite a bit. And there's sprinkler systems that were pumping up from the river using these big gasoline pumps that are illegal in the wilderness unless there's an emergency fire. And so we had those pumping up to this cabin and spraying down everything. We were in our full fire gear. We were working at 3 a.m. And I remember being outside with my fire gear, walking around and just doing a full 360 spin. And you can hear the fire. I mean, it was close. We couldn't see it because of smoke. But, I mean, you could see it on the mountainsides, but like you couldn't see the flames right near you, of course. But, you know, within 150 feet of you, there was flames, 200 feet.
Crackling.
Actually, Pete, these fires don't really crackle. These are really major wildfires, so you hear them coming from pretty far away. And in that setting where I was actually completely surrounded by it, I mean, it was a ways off, but pretty much surrounded. It was a lot louder, so it sounds like you're standing at the airport watching planes go off. It's a jet engine right around your ear, or a train going past. It's a huge burn. I mean, these flame lengths are sometimes more than 100 feet high, which is really frightening. These guys are moving fast, faster than you can run. So they're big fires, and you can really hear them coming at you. It's pretty exciting. I was definitely a little scared that night. But thankfully, the other firefighters that were on really kept it together. We all did, and we did our jobs. We didn't have to do too much protection. We just were basically maintaining the equipment that was doing their jobs. And we walked away with that cabin still standing, which I'm really happy about.
That's good.
The cabin looks great. It's a really awesome place. Definitely recommend checking it out. But that's the cool thing. We didn't have to do a back burn, which is kind of the emergency that was our last resort.
So what's a back burn?
So the simple explanation of a back burn, Pete, it's actually a defense against a major wildfire, sorry. So these fires are coming at you and they're eating up fuel, which is primarily oxygen and timber. So to get that oxygen, it's literally sucking. It creates its own storm system where it's sucking that oxygen towards it. So a great defense. It's a strategic one is to start a back burn. If you start a smaller fire, you dig a line that the fire can't cross as easily. Start a smaller fire in the background so that the first fire sucks that towards it and essentially pulls the other fire with the oxygen towards it. And the fires meet. When they do, there's a lot less fuel, and then you've got that little line that you dug. Stops the fires from going beyond that towards you, which is it's a pretty interesting defense. It's definitely not something you want to be doing, but it's a last resort. And thankfully, we didn't need to use it, which was really great. And that fire kept burning, but not too much longer. We had great luck in the weather. Got some snow.
Well, look, you're definitely braver than I am, obviously doing stuff like that, but obviously I love hearing it. It's interesting, it's a different kind of world for me, but for you, what keeps you coming back, going back? I know we've even talked that after you leave here, you're thinking in the next 6 to 12 months you might be going back into it again. What keeps drawing you back into that same type of role?
I guess it's pretty addictive, Pete. I love that kind of lifestyle. And it's not just about the thrill of that, because that sure is exciting in times, but it's just more the lifestyle. I mean, there's beautiful people back there. There's a beautiful culture that I'm fascinated with, the history of that kind of place and how to maintain that history. But I have become so passionate about the conservation of that land. I mean, it's given me so much experience. I mean, I consider myself becoming an adult in that place. And I learned so much from it, from the people that are there, the environment that it creates, but also the every skill that you learn out of that. That you can carry on throughout. If it's the hands-on skill, like how to tie up a hitching line to your horse, or if it's something that's more serious about how to be around other people. It teaches you everything out in that kind of experience. I mean, it's this simple lifestyle. Bringing it back to the basics, and that has really helped me in life. Like I was saying before, I'm the best person when I'm out there, and I want to have that back. But I think the biggest thing, honestly, that living at Big Prairie and living in the Bob Marshall Wilderness has taught me is that every setting I want to be in, I want to be giving something tangible back. So affecting the environment or the people I'm around me in some way that's tangible.
Yeah.
So that when I leave, it's a better place than when I arrive.
Yeah.
And I want to be using that everywhere I go. I'm working with you right now, and I hope to be leaving that behind when I leave Wellington.
Yeah.
And I hope to do that anywhere I go.
Yeah.
But being in a place like Big Prairie where the land, the animals, everything around that, the people, everything is so sensitive.
Yeah.
You need to be careful with what you're doing because or else you're going to negatively affect those things. And living in a place where that's not quite as obvious here, maybe there's a lot more going on. There's 350,000 people here, so we're not being as effective. But as long as you're leaving that positive impact, the world's going to be a better place.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's the one thing we talk about a lot with our role. Everyone you interact with, you either leave them a little bit happier, a little bit sadder. We work a lot on customer service with that, but I think that is in life. I think, like you say, you might not notice it as much here, but I think definitely it's got the same impact. Everyone you talk to, you're going to be leaving something behind. You're going to be leaving an impact on that. So that's pretty amazing. That's incredible.
Absolutely.
Cool. So is there any way that anyone watching can get involved or help out or support any way that they can get involved with that?
Absolutely, Pete. Actually, earlier in the video, I mentioned a great nonprofit called the Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation. Cool. It was actually my first job in the wilderness, kind of my foot in the door, if you will. A great nonprofit in the area that helps maintain that wilderness. So the Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation's role is they primarily take wilderness volunteers. So anyone can apply to be a volunteer, go into the woods on a completely free trip. You get all your food and gear supplied. You just show up at the trailhead. You go into the woods for 5 to 10 days, and you help maintain it. So give back to that place, and it's a really amazing experience. I recommend it to anyone that wants to see anything of what I've been talking about.
Yep.
And it's completely free. You just have to show up. Give them a call. Just look up online. Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation. They do an amazing job. And if you don't want to jump into the woods where there's bears and wildfires, feel free to just give them a shout on their website because they do a really amazing thing for the people and the animals and the place around them. It's really beautiful.
Well, there you go, guys. Obviously, jump in, do a donation, help out the cause. Obviously, you heard some pretty amazing stories there, so see if you can do that, leave that behind for others. But Fisher, I want to say a massive cheers. Thanks so much for joining. Thanks for educating, and hopefully the viewers got something out of it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.